So next up, another amazing advisor, and you've met him before if you've been on some of these prior Zooms, and he did a thing on our On the Couch show, which we made into a webinar. Um, Malek Amrani, he is, and I'll do a brief introduction. He's originally from Morocco and came to New York at the age of 17 and worked his way up the restaurant industry in New York, which is a tough industry. Everything from a busboy to a barback to a waiter to ultimately the sommelier, and then got into the wine business and import export, and then decided to start his own vineyard in Napa Valley, which is one of the top wine areas in the world. And he is really an expert. We met in New York many years ago at a wine store that we were both friendly with the owner. And Malik has supplied wine, the Vice wine, to many of our events, including the Silver Fox Summit in 2018. And he and his wife just had a new baby recently named Celine about 6 months ago. So he's a new dad, and he's going to talk about the new wine, the Cabernet, which is being harvested right now in California, and what the grape is all about. And I'm sorry we're all not together in person to taste it, but you could also order it online on his website. You get a discount if you use the code. Um, and it's a great wine. It's my go-to favorite wine. And so without further ado, Malek Amrani. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Dan. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Dan. Uh, Dan is definitely a big fan of the Vice. I think his number one Vice is the Vice. I can attest to that. So today I'm here to talk about wine and talk about Cabernet Sauvignon. I have one wine here. I'll explain the label to you in a little bit. But Cabernet Sauvignon is the number one varietal in the world by production and by consumption. It is produced everywhere where wine is made, in a sense. It is the most famous varietal. But Cabernet varietal, Cabernet Sauvignon, the name itself, you guys probably had Cabernet Franc in the past, you had Sauvignon Blanc. These are, like most of the grapes that we consume around the world are actually French varietals. The Italians and the rest of European did a really crappy job at selling their grapes to the world. I will say most of the varietals that Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, even Pinot Grigio, which is Pinot Gris, um, and most of varietals are French. Cabernet Sauvignon is actually a child varietal of Cabernet Franc and Sauvignon Blanc. This is not me saying it, but the French are Latin. Everything is masculine and feminine, even objects. Uh,
Sure.
Chair in French is feminine. Um, I don't know. A key is probably masculine. Not thinking French right now. Although French is my first language, should do a better job. But Cabernet Sauvignon is a child of Cabernet Franc and Sauvignon Blanc. Cabernet Franc is the big papa, is the OG of all the varietals. It actually fathered Cabernet Sauvignon. If you guys know Merlot, Merlot, the father grape, is also Cabernet Franc. There's a varietal in Chile called Carmenere, very popular in Chile. Carmenere, the father varietal, is also Cabernet Franc. And there's another varietal in the Basque region that Cabernet Franc fathered. Cabernet Franc was the big player of all the grapes, slept around all over the world, in a sense. Um, so Cabernet Franc, what makes it a great varietal, it's got thick skin, it makes great wine. It takes a long time for Cabernet to ripen. For example, harvest started for us mid August this year, really early August. This year was one of the earliest years we've had, not only the drought, but we had a pretty warm year. So we started harvesting Sauvignon Blanc early August, and now we're harvesting Cabernet Sauvignon. Cabernet Sauvignon, we just started harvesting it last week, and we'll be picking it, throughout this week and next week um, until we're done. Cabernet Sauvignon is what brings the money for Napa Valley. I'll say about 52% of all the varietals planted in Napa is Cab. Cab is the money maker. Again, it's what people want. But as a varietal, it's actually not very aromatic. Cabernet has good tannins, good body, good power, but it's really not that flavorful of varietal. So most of Cabernet Sauvignon probably had it from the United States is a blended Cabernet, because by law, to be Cabernet Sauvignon on a label, all you have to be is 75%. The other 25% can be other varietals, concentrates, chemicals that you and I can't pronounce, a bunch of other things. We don't do any of that at Device. All our varietals at Device Wine are 100% varietal, so our cab is 100% straight cab. We also don't filter it, unfiltered Cabernet. So unfiltered Cabernet, makes it's almost like, if I want to give you an example, it's like drinking coffee. I will say like Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks coffee, the regular coffee. It is filtered coffee. Unfiltered would be more like, I won't say espresso, but I would say more like Cuban or Turkish or Greek coffee. It's the full flavor. It kind of gives you feel more of the flavor. You have more of the feeling too. It's probably stronger. Um, but yeah, so Cabernet Sauvignon here today. I have this wine. It's from Coombsville. Coombsville is a one of the sub-regions of Napa Valley. Napa Valley is about 30 miles long, 5 miles at the widest point. Think of it as Manhattan, magnified 1.5 times. It's tiny. Napa Valley is very small, and it's kind of divided into 16 sub-regions. Coombsville is one of them. Um, if I want to put it on the map, I'll say Coombsville is
They left that name.
what?
They left that name all
Um,
these years.
yeah, it's like Lower East Side of Manhattan.
No, I'm just addressing the name. Coon. I don't know this. I've been to
Oh,
Napa.
Coombsville, yeah,
Oh, MBS. Thank you.
Coombsille.
I wasn't hearing that correctly.
Yeah, it's named after somebody's name, Coombs, that
Okay.
decided that moved to Napa back in the 1800s, um, and decided to start planting vineyards and make wine. But this is a unique wine I have here today. This is double oak, so I'm putting a spin on what people have been doing to bourbon. A lot of bourbons, or even scotches, they go into through two oak types of through two types of oak barrels. This wine, I aged it for 20 months in a new French oak. French oak gives you like such a refined flavor. French oak has smaller grain, the oak itself, so it gives you more of like spice, full spice, a little vanilla, like really French vanilla type of flavor. And American oak, there are really two types of oak out there, French and American. There's also Hungarian. Sometimes people call it Russian, but really Hungarian. And it's in between French and American. The two most popular are French and American. And in wine business, most people use French oak. So I aged this wine 20 months in French oak, and I then moved it for an additional 12 months in American oak. So it's a big monster wine. From color perspective, you guys can see it's impossible to see through it. It's really dark and dense in color, as you can see. And for wine, I'm gonna go through a little wine tasting. So I'm gonna tease you. I'm the only one sipping here. I know Dan has a bottle underneath him, and he just goes underneath, take a sip, because he doesn't want to do it in front of you guys. Oh, there you go, the cup, the magic cup. So when it comes to wine tasting, it's really all in the nose. For humans, about 75 to 95% of what we taste is actually what we smell. Our tongues don't taste that much. They only taste sweet, sour, bitter, and salty. All the flavors that you typically pick up in a wine or in food actually comes from your nose. So we really eat with our noses, not with our mouth. So I'm gonna go and smell it. You guys saw me really swirling this wine a lot. It is unfiltered, so the more oxygen swirling it gives it oxygen in contact. So the more oxygen, the more it jumps out of the glass, more it opens up. So it is dark and dense in color, but on the nose, it's quite the opposite. It's just vivid, ripe nose. I'll say I get acai. I don't want to get fancy, but acai, fig jam, and blueberry reduction. That's what I get on the nose. It's just from the nose. It tells me it's going to be a really thick, juicy wine. And I'm gonna go taste it. So I'm gonna take 5 seconds.
Not fair.
So if you really want to enjoy wine, you don't want to drink it like water. If you do that, just skip the glass. Drink it from the bottle if you want to get tipsy. Honestly, and I say this a lot often, and I say it to everybody.
Totally.
You get tipsy. This works better, and it hits you faster too. Somehow wine gets weaker when it goes into glass. My glass. I don't know about you, but if you want to get tipsy, go straight to the bottle. But if you really want to taste wine, you want to do it like I did. You want to put it in your mouth. You kind of almost want to have an open airflow at some point between your nose and mouth. I'm gonna redo it. If you don't want to do it, you don't want to look like a snob, you can just wash or rinse. You can rinse with it or just at least play with it in your mouth for a second or two. Savor it, almost like if you're eating good food, right? You don't just swallow it right away. You kind of take your time and chew it slowly. Same thing with wine, especially if you're spending money in good wine. You really want to savor it, and that's when you get all the flavor. The problem with this wine that I have here, it is so young and powerful that the sip that I first took, it just came back and hit me maybe like 30 seconds later from the finish. There's such massive tannins. Again, look at this color. It's so dark, massive color. And it just keeps building steadily in flavor throughout the finish. Taste wise, I definitely get like layers on layers on layers, like stacked toasted coconut. I get like chocolate, but not like sweet chocolate, almost like cacao. I get like vanilla bean, and then that chocolate comes back like almost like a sweeter chocolate, melted chocolate.
Stop.
Sorry, I'm just describing it to you. It's what I do for a living. And the finish, as I said, it's so long and chewy. It's definitely promising a long life ahead for this wine. I hope I can live long enough to see how it's going to do for the next, few decades. Or hopefully I'll save some bottles at least to savor over time. Definitely a big wine. As I said, after I kind of like swallow it, most of the time I spit the wine, but after I kind of swallow it, then it comes back. At first, the way I tasted it, it's like, think of it like a bowl that's rolling. It's a snowball. It just rolls from the tip of the tongue all the way down. And for this wine specifically, some wines do that, especially big. This is double oak wine, so there's so much oak into it. It actually almost like kind of like flavored came back 30 seconds later on the back of my mouth to the mid palate and stays there. I honestly don't even need to take another sip right away, although I'm teased to go back to it and just see what it's all about. But it's just so much flavor on the palate that yeah, I'm hoping to go to the gym later, cycle a little bit. Although I'm usually used to drinking, 2-3 glasses of wine and go work it out, sweat it out. As I said, I'm hoping I don't sip on this a lot, because with such a big wine like this, it's impossible to drink 2 glasses without begging for food. And if you are at a restaurant, you're definitely ordering some food. If you are at home, like today for me, I'm working from home. I was in New York yesterday and I just got back. I finished another glass of this and I will be walking around the kitchen, snooping around. Although I've been doing that all day, I'll be opening the cabinet, opening the fridge a few times. It's subconscious. You don't feel it, but you just find yourself opening and closing and sipping through this. Not good. Not good.
Very, very true. Very tough.
So yeah, this is I told you a little bit about Cabernet. I told you a little bit about this wine and tasting it. If you really want to get good at wine and tasting wine and really feeling what I described to you, you just gotta taste it properly. most importantly, you got to learn to smell the wine. And when you go smell the wine, if you close your eyes and you are in a quiet room, you're going to be able to smell a lot more, because our brains, when it comes to our senses, vision takes the most of our brain capacity out of all the five senses. Like we're sitting right now, yes, we're talking audio, you can hear me, but we rely on vision for most of our everyday life. Um, Hearing second, and then it used to be our sense of smell. Our sense of smell is actually linked to memory and emotions a lot more than any other sense. Although we love listening to music and the way it makes us feel, but actually the way our nose, our smell, like most other mammals, is actually linked to memory and emotions a lot more. You guys, if you've ever fell in love with someone and they were wearing a cologne or perfume that first day, and you just walk down the street and somebody walks by with that same cologne, or it just makes you crazy and want to like look around and look after them. Um, but you can develop your sense of smell, or at least make it stronger. Um, Especially now in the 21st century, most people don't go to the store and grab the fruit and smell them anymore. We don't we don't really use our sense of smell as much anymore. Even like 100 years ago, if you went down the street, down the block, um, you smelled animal manure and you smelled all type of weird smells. Now you really don't smell anything. And as I said, in the 21st century, whether it's Amazon or Fresh Direct or any other delivery service, we kind of like relying less and less on our sense of smell. Wine is a great way to redevelop it, and actually to savor wine and have a good time while you sip it. So yeah, I can talk about wine all day. If you guys have any questions, please let me know.
Visit
It's
device.com.
device.com.
Device.com. Check it out, everybody. I'll put it in the box.